fucking bike! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Shake and Bake F1 podcast. I am your host, Adrian Huff, coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, coming to you live from Toronto, Canada, RJ McCullough. What is up, RJ?
We're back.
Yes.
Oh, feels good to be back. It's been a long time off. Not going to waste too much time because we have a lot to discuss. So, yes, Shake and Bake, a new iteration of the podcast. We've done 80 episodes, but this is number one on the Shake and Bake. So today we're going to be discussing our rebrand. We got a couple new segments, and we're going to go over everything from the off season as we get prepared for testing, which it starts in about 10 hours. If my math is correct, it's around 5 o'clock right now. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. So our first new segment, I will send it over to you, but our first new segment is what's grinding our gears? What is pissing you off or bothering you in the world of the world right now?
Oh man, we're already jumping right into it, aren't we? Yes. Grinding my gears. What's been grinding my gears the last couple of weeks in the world of Formula One? I'll tell you. And it involves the individual behind you on the wall, Lewis Hamilton. And my beef is not with Lewis Hamilton, is with his soon-to-be former team, Mercedes. Now, I just really don't think they're handling Lewis leaving the team very well. Now, it could be worse. Obviously, there's been quite a few volatile change-ups and when it comes to drivers, the driver market and driver switching teams, but it just really seems like either the admins of the Mercedes teams or Toto or whoever it is, there's just somebody that is a little bit miffed by him leaving. It just seems to come across a little bit in the posts. There's just a lot of George content, not a lot of Lewis content, when I feel like it should be, not to cut out George, but I feel like it should really be Lewis-centric because this is his last year with his main team in his career. So, yeah, my beef is with Mercedes. What about you? What's grinding your gears?
Yeah, I kind of share the same one. I'm going to go outside of the F1 world for mine, but just to kind of add on to yours, they're already, really favoring George, at least in terms of the media. But if they do promote the Antonelli kid next year, then George is going to be the clear number one driver. And unless that kid beats him, which would be amazing, that's going to be very, very, very annoying. So that'll be a future grind my gears for sure. Mine, going to go back to the well to something I've mentioned before on this podcast and my previous iteration of career that I had, which was a golf media guy. And the state of the PGA Tour right now is an absolute shambles. It's an absolute joke. I mean, they just had Tiger Woods, like the greatest golfer ever, come back finally, and then he withdrew. Couldn't even get through the tournament. He was sick, but he also looked pretty hurt. But the Live Tour has taken like most of the good golfers, and their product is unwatchable. It's terrible on TV. PGA Tour still has the good courses, but the leaderboards are really watered down. So let that be a lesson to other sports that maybe this might start happening to with all this Saudi money coming in. So that's really what's been grinding my gears as of late. So that's our first segment of the new podcast. That's what's been grinding our gears. And now I guess we can get back to F1 stuff and let's start jumping into the offseason. Let's jump into all the stuff that happened. I might miss a few, but I've got some written down here. Let's start with an American story, since you are in America, and I'm right next to America.
Yes.
Andretti seemed like it was a foregone conclusion they were going to get in, but now they, in fact, did not get in. So do you have any details on why they didn't get in, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so they were actually approved by the FIA, or not granted permission, obviously, but the FIA basically signed off on approval for Andretti to join the sport, but they just needed the final approval from F1, Formula One itself, and they were denied, obviously. And sort of the reason that they put was that they didn't feel like Andretti brought enough value to the sport. Obviously, bring another team in that's going to dilute the payout and the winnings of each team. So if a new team's going to come in, they're going to need to be bringing in lots of revenue, lots of new eyes. And to me, it just felt like Andretti was like the perfect choice. You know, they're trying to build this market in North America. What better than arguably the most iconic American team that could join Formula One with Cadillac So I don't know. It just felt like such a major oversight, and it felt like it wasn't properly justified, the denial that is. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way. I should have put that as grind my gears, obviously, but I knew we were going to be discussing it. And I don't know. I feel for Andretti. I mean, they've already put so much money into just to get into the sport is hundreds of millions of dollars. So I hope one day they're able to actually properly join the grid. And I don't know, maybe teams like, maybe they could buy Haas or something, because oh boy, Haas, we're going to discuss them a little bit more later when we talk about testing, but I think they're in for a very rough season, particularly this year. So we're going to have to see. But yeah, it's very disappointing that Andretti was denied this offseason for 2025 entry, I believe it was, and 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they still have potential to join for either 2027 and possibly 2026. But again, they're going to basically have to start the process all over. So we'll see what happens. But as of a couple of weeks ago, Andretti will not be joining the grid in the next year or two.
Yeah, very disappointing. I mean, the statement they made that they're not going to bring any value. I mean, they would have paid so much money to these teams just to get in, and then how can a team that is more likely to be competitive than Haas, for example, how can they say with a straight face that they're not going to add any value? It makes no sense. I hope that the story's not over. We used to have a lot more cars on the grid. NASCAR has 35 cars. I know they actually like bump into each other. That's like part of NASCAR racing, but yeah, it's just stupid. It's classic. I don't know if you blame FIA or F1 or whatever, who to blame necessarily is, but it's very disappointing, and especially for North American fans such as ourselves, would have brought another, like, a real American team in there. So disappointing.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's actually a brand of, I don't know if they have these up in Canada, but there's a brand of sort of like Dave and Buster's, those type of places where it's like a big arcade. They have go-karts and stuff like that. There's a place called Andretti. It's not just one. They're like a chain. They've been really expanding. And when they first opened up their location in Buford, they had like one of the old actual Andretti Indy cars on display. They actually took it out. I'm pretty sure somebody tried to damage it or something like that, but they took it away. But I don't know. To me, it just felt like, again, just such a missed opportunity, because it's just such a recognized brand, especially in the United States and Canada. So huge missed opportunity for them, and really disappointing for certain drivers that are really on the come up, like Colton Herta, who could have had a chance to break into F1 if Andretti was selected. So we'll see what happens. But as of now, they won't be here.
Yeah, very disappointing. Speaking of Haas, they had their own slightly disappointing, well, majorly disappointing for those who are fans of Drive to Survive, and just really the only entertainment that Haas has given us in the last few years was their TP, Gunther, Steiner, and he got the boot. So whether he pops back up at Ferrari where he was before, or I believe, or somewhere else, remains to be seen. I don't know if he is on gardening leave, as Matteo Binotto is, but kind of expect to see him back at some point in the next few years. But yeah, definitely disappointing that we're not going to get his Hulk smash and what the fuck? Or, I don't know. That was terrible. That was terrible impression. I got to work on it. It's been a whole off season. I don't want to test out my Toto one. That's my best one. I don't want to break that out too early. But yeah, disappointing not to see that Haas. I forget the guy's name. What's the Haas team principal? Komatsu. Well, give me this. Oh, Ayo Komatsu. Household name.
And he's if you've watched Drive to Survive, he's basically been Gunther's right-hand man at Haas. So it's not like Gene Haas just sort of kicked Gunther to the curb and was like, oh, we're going to hire outside. No, it's actually a little bit more disappointing. Gunther was actually advocating for more spending and more of a budget for Haas so that they could actually, have decent performance and get some points. But Gene was not willing to spend more money on the team. And obviously they've had really bad luck in the past with sponsors. So Gunther is out. And I think that's a very bold choice. And I really would like to just talk to Gene Haas and just be like, he's got to have this certain point locked in where he's like, okay, I'm spending this much money every year, but even though we're not getting any points and not winning, I'm still getting this sort of amount of revenue back. So it's got to be profitable for him, and he's not willing to lose that profitability to potentially expand the team, which from a sports perspective is abysmal. It's really disgusting. But, I guess if you're solely looking at it from a business perspective, I guess that's sort of the reasons of why he made that decision. But when you have the new team principal making statements like they're already sandbagging, like vocally, I mean, I don't even know if you can call it sandbagging, because there's not going to be any secret performance that's going to be unlocked at any point, because they're not doing any sort of focus on power or anything like that in the preseason testing. Apparently their main focus is how to handle the tires with preseason testing. That was what the new team principal said. So obviously a very bad spot for those guys. And I feel for Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, the two drivers. I really think Nico has a spot to potentially get a decent drive. He sort of had his F1 career resurrected by Haas, and he could definitely potentially move up to maybe a team like Audi, who are allegedly eyeing him for a potential move in the future. But I think for guys like Kevin Magnussen, he's just sort of riding this out as long as he can, because as much as I like K-Mag, I just don't see him going to a better team, at least at this point in his career. So, yeah, it's not going to be a good season for Haas.
No, it's going to be god-awful. Even if they get the luckiest of caution flags at the most lucky times, they're still not going to do very well. I mean, they basically have no chance. I'm just looking something up here, but
no, you're good. Real quick, while you're looking that up, sorry, I just want to kind of quickly explain, because since we're sort of talking about the off season, the reason why we're sort of changing our name. I feel like I just want to quickly touch on that, because I just kind of like, I don't want to confuse the people. So
go for it.
If you've watched any of our podcasts in the past, our Formula One shows, you've seen our clips. We used to go by the name, the HOS, or the Hard or Soft F1 Podcast. And we've been posting under that name for 2 seasons. And we just really felt like it was time for a change. I feel like Formula One is really about to start gearing up for some major changes in itself. So it just kind of felt like the perfect time to sort of rebrand and change our name. But we also wanted to keep those original episodes up so they could still be watched, because I mean, it is a time capsule of the last 2 seasons. It's work that we're very proud of. So if you go to our channel, all those old episodes, if you want to go back and watch, will be listed under playlist under the Hard or Soft episodes. But from henceforth, we are going to be the Shake and Bake F1 Podcast. So
shake and bake,
baby.
And yeah,
very excited.
If you want to, you can just drag that part right back to the beginning when we were talking about that before I go to grinds my gears.
Yes.
Riverside, which we are now using, does allow you to just take and drag and drop. I don't know if you watched that video I sent you the other day. Pretty cool, though.
Yes.
We're on Riverside. But allow me to get back to the current topic, which is Ferrari.
The biggest news by far.
I'm going to be talking out of both sides of my mouth this year because, I mean, as you can see, I'm a pretty big Lewis Hamilton fan. I got Lewis, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Got Lewis up there, Lewis down there. Got Lewis all over. Got Lewis on my head. Yeah, one more year left to Mercedes, and then I'll probably never root for Mercedes again in the rest of my life because I don't really like the way they're handling this. Toto, I do still like Toto. I'm not gonna lie, but I strongly dislike George. But yeah, Lewis, he's moved to Ferrari. I want to say the worst kept secret, but it actually was a pretty good kept secret because he signed for 2 years at Mercedes. He's gonna make it through 1 year. He's being paid $150 million a year, I believe, from Ferrari. That's just what I looked up. But no, it sounds like a lot. But on the first day of the announcing of the signing, Ferrari, their stock went up so much that they made like $10 billion or something. I don't know, not $10 billion, but lot of money. So it's paying for itself. I'm going to look up how much their stock went up. Lewis,
the sort of
Hamilton,
value that Lewis brings
Ferrari
to the team.
Stock jump.
Unbelievable. Ferrari.
Give me your thoughts while I look this up.
Yeah, Ferrari, I think, are honestly, for a shocking turn of events, I think Ferrari are actually making a very strategic and smart move. And they're doing what Mercedes, for some reason, are not willing to do. And they see the value that Lewis Hamilton brings on and off the track. Clearly. So how much was that stock jumped up by?
Yeah, so allegedly for Mercedes didn't want to spend over the next 10 years $700 million or $75 million, sorry, on Lewis's charitable stuff and all of his programs he does. But obviously Ferrari took that leap. Their share price jumped 6% on a market cap of $66 billion. So this news in the first day was worth $4 billion in one day. So the $153 million is like a little drop in the bucket, just a grain of sand. So, I mean, it really is paying for itself. And it's just going to keep going up. Like once they have Charles and Lewis, French Vasseur seems like he's doing a good job. At the end of last season, the Ferrari car maybe didn't match the race pace of Red Bull, but for qualifying, I forget the number, but Charles finished on pole or the top two like all of the last 5 to 7 races. So
yes,
they have something going in the right direction. Hopefully, if not next year, before the regulations change, and then who knows? Maybe they'll be the best team after the regulations change as well. It went Mercedes to Red Bull. Seems to be going back and forth between the two every time we change regulations. So maybe Ferrari can weasel away in there. Lewis can get number 8, and then he can go for number 9, and then he can go for number 10. Not 1, not 2, not 3. To quote LeBron James.
Get them all.
Yeah, it's going to be like collecting Pokemon out here. So yeah, that's going to be a really interesting story to follow all year. Like, what if the Mercedes car is dominant this year and the Ferrari is kind of shit? Like, we know, as good as Ferrari's car can be, we know they struggle with strategy and reliability. So that's going to be interesting. What happens with Carlos Sainz? Is he going to be out of a car next year while we wait for Audi to come in? How is that relationship going to be? How is Mercedes' relationship between Lewis and George? And are they going to give Lewis as much information as the season starts wrapping up? Because then he could take that information to Ferrari. Lots of things to watch. We'll obviously be tracking that throughout the year. I think we should skip ahead to switch the order of our last 2 things here we have, because one of them follows the Lewis thing nicely. I'm going to kind of let you take the lead on this one because you're the Red Bull guy.
Yes.
There seems to be some issues in the Red Bull paddock. Why don't you go ahead with that one?
Off to the side here now. But yes, there's been here. That is not completely confirmed. That is only from like insider sources. We do know 100% that Christian Horner is being investigated for some sort of abuse of power in some shape or form. It could be sexually related. We do not know. So I don't want to fully speculate on that and say for sure whether or not or exactly what he did. But all we do know is that he said or sent some not great things to his personal assistant. This is not even, again, this story has, to Christian's credit, has been twisted quite a bit over the last week or so. It originally came out that he like sent nudes and stuff like this, which again is completely unfounded that we have now learned. But there are definitely some major implications to some of the stuff that he did. And it could be sexually related, allegedly. So that stuff is going to be coming out. But he is still with the team. He's on his way to Bahrain as we speak if he hasn't already landed. So we don't know what's going to happen, but it was looking like for a couple of days there that Christian might be retiring. But again, there's been lots of misreporting. Bernie Ecclestone had allegedly told Christian to retire and to step down, but then he posted on his Instagram that he didn't do that. So it's just a lot of nonsense. But it's just not a great start for Red Bull is all I'm going to say. It's just it's just insane, this sport. No matter how high your highs can be, you're going to have a very low, very quick on the horizon. And Christian Horner is a great example of that. And I do want to say, as somebody who, even though I really like Red Bull, Max is my favorite driver, nothing like that is acceptable in any sort of capacity, entertainment, sports, even just in the professional workplace. Absolutely not. Zero tolerance policy here at Shake and Bake. Just want to make that pertinently clear. Yeah. That being said, there's lots of conspiracy theories about this because conveniently, a lot of these leaks that happen with Christian Horner are from Dutch media outlets. Those are usually the first media outlets to report these things. So there are theories that Max's camp or Jos Verstappen's camp or Helmut Marko's camp, for some reason, whatever it may be, wants Horner out. So they're leaking this information and they're trying to just poke the knife a little bit deeper just to try to cause some sort of, just a firestorm on Twitter or whatever the case is, just to put it out there and just be like, hey, we want him gone. Again, completely alleged. Nothing's confirmed, but the conspiracy theories have been running wild. So much so that now that we've seen Actually, before I talk about the car and preseason testing, let me hear what you think about Christian Horner, because I feel like you definitely earned that.
I know you don't want to speculate, but I am going to wildly speculate because I have, for a long time, voiced my displeasure with Christian Horner. And the one thing that was his one golden beacon in his world was his wife, his lovely wife, Jerry Halliwell. Put in a good performance in Gran Turismo, the movie, just to say that. So basically, it seems as though he was given the choice. Yeah, Ginger Spice. Apparently, he was given the choice. Not apparently. He was given the choice to resign before any of this came out. So basically, he chose to keep things at his home happy, or to try and keep his job. And he chose his job over his wife. That's first. Second of all, I know you're not going to speculate, but this latest article that's come out, now this was like a couple days ago. I'm just going to read this. I haven't read in a long time. The independent investigation into team boss Christian Horner appears to be one of major proportions. The female employee who came forward in December 2023 at the billion-dollar group's headquarters in Austria accuses Horner of sexually transgressive behavior. Again, we at Shake and Bake do not stand for this. The employee handed over text messages which would show this to the external lawyer investigating the Horner case. The Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf obtained these messages. So that's where the Jos Verstappen situation may come in. From the text messages between Red Bull's female employee and Horner, viewed by De Telegraaf, it emerges that Horner sent sexually oriented messages to the employee regularly and over a considerable period of time. What a scumbag. It is also clear that Horner did everything he could to keep the matter under wraps. In the weekend before the first publication, after he was confronted with the investigation and asked for a response, his lawyer sent a letter to the lawyer assisting the female employee within 24 hours. In it, the Horner camp offered a settlement for a whopping $600. I don't know that the translation of the money is there, but that's a lot of money. The allegations regarding Horner's sexually transgressive behavior are now also known to several other key players in the Formula One world. So this happened. A couple days later, Red Bull had their car launch on February 15th, and Christian Horner was there. Didn't look like there's any. I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't have known that there was any problems because he didn't look any different. Still looks like just a dirtbag like he always has. But I think they asked him about it, and he kind of said he's kind of brushing it off, saying like, "Yeah, it's something being dealt with behind the scenes." He's denied everything. Very strange power struggle. If either way the story goes, either Horner did this really bad stuff, which is awful, and I don't know how he thinks he's going to get away with sending these messages when he's that famous and that well known, and that many people either like or dislike him. So either he did do this and he's fired, and that's horrible, or he didn't do this, and the people at the top of Red Bull, Helmut Marko, and I guess you can say Jos Verstappen because Max is at the top and his dad kind of controls him, are in a power struggle to get Christian Horner out when they're at arguably the peak of any team has ever been in the sport of F1. Red Bull they had the most dominant season that anyone's ever had as a team and with Max ever in the history of Formula One last year. And instead of keeping that ball rolling, this is the shitstorm that's coming up. So either way, it's looking bad for Red Bull. Their one saving grace now is Max Verstappen, obviously, but Adrian Newey is still there and seems like he's whipped up one hell of a car. I thought they were just going to basically roll out last year's car with a few upgrades, but I've really made some changes. Yeah. The Horner story, we should know, I assume, before the first race, whether he's going to be the team principal this year. If not, maybe it'll be Lambiasi or whatever, the guy that's Max's radio guy. I'm not exactly sure who that would go to. That remains to be seen. I don't know. This story just keeps taking twists and turns. But anything else you want to add or say about the Red Bull car?
Gosh, very well said, by the way, with the two different comparisons of the two different scenarios. Very, very well said. The notes about Adrian Newey is actually very interesting because just from some of the images that we've seen from them doing, filming day and running the car for the first time, for whatever reason, Red Bull have decided to go with the upgrade that was mocked relentlessly, and they're going with Mercedes. Helmut Marko called it a variation of it. It's obviously not the same design, but they're going with the zero pod design, and it's just insane that you have like that level of a dominant car, and instead of just trying to beef that up, they're like, no, we got something else cooking. So very exciting. It sounds amazing. The car really sounds nice. So I'm very, very excited for the testing clips and to just see how it looks, obviously, and excited to see Max hit the track. All the drama aside, that's really all I'm focused on, and I really hope they make a decision regarding Horner before the end of the season, or sorry, before the season actually starts, because that's just a bad look if he gets booted in Australia or something like that. So it needs to be wrapped up and quickly.
Yeah, surprised it's taken this long, really. If they have the text messages, they have spoken to both sides. I don't really know what's holding them up, but we'll obviously keep an eye on that one. Now, there are a few new teams, kind of not really new teams because Andretti was the only new team that was up, but they aren't in. Kind of rebrands of teams, just like we did a rebrand. A couple F1 teams. We have the Visa Cash App Red Bull, which maybe they're just going to take Red Bull's car from last year and still be on podiums. So good on Danny Rick and Yuki Tsunoda if that happens. We have Sauber, which I don't even know what they're called anymore because Kick and I don't know what is happening with their sponsors. So I'm just going to call them Sauber. And
who knows?
So we had, is there one more? We had Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri changed.
I think that's it because a lot of the liveries just look different because a lot of them are going the stripped carbon fiber this year.
Yes,
a lot of black liveries.
Yeah, very interesting. So we're not going to go through all 10, but why don't we each give our top 3 and bottom 3 if you have that ready?
Yes, I do.
Take your pick.
So, do you want me to list all 3 or just go back and forth?
Yeah, go 3. Are you going to start bottom 3 or top 3?
I'll do my 3 favorites first.
All right, go for it.
I'm going to say McLaren. I think it's the only one that really...
The third or first?
Third place, sorry.
Okay.
So third place, my third favorite is the McLaren. I feel like they really found a way to make the carbon fiber look really nice. They took away a lot of that light blue, and it just looks like a monster to me. And it's one of the few carbon fiber liveries that I feel like actually has a shot at being really, really fast. So I think it looks pretty good. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the carbon fiber liveries this year, but I did really like that one. Next is Ferrari. Even though I kind of prefer last year's shade of red, it's just a little bit more of like that candy red. It's just a little shinier. This one, it's more of like the classic matte red Ferrari, and they've got the little yellow accents on it. Some people were saying it looks like McDonald's. I don't think it does, but I think it looks really, really nice. And God, I hope so much that it's better than last year's car. And it does seem to be, at least from the 4-second clip that we have seen on Twitter. And my favorite, this is going to be a little bit of a surprise to you, I think, and it's just because of how just bright and nice it looks. My favorite is the Visa Cash App Red Bull, just because it embodies Toro Rosso, you know what I mean? And even I don't like the big green Cash App logo. That's a little bit of an eyesore. Besides that, though, it's my favorite livery for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one. It does invoke some Toro Rosso, which is one of the best liveries we've had. Should have just gone right back to that. So I have a very similar list. Number 3, McLaren.
Nice.
I like that it's just a simple orange and black, 2 colors that go well together. I am half Dutch, despite my disdain for Max Verstappen. So I do like the Dutch orange. Ferrari, number 2, pretty much exactly what you said. Slightly less enjoying the red than last year, but I do like the little red, yellow stripe on the side. And I gotta start liking Ferrari now, so can't go against that. And number 1, no surprise, Mercedes. I know we don't like the black carbon fiber, but if there's any team that does the black carbon fiber right, I think it's Mercedes. And I like kind of the gray and turquoise they have on the nose, and they still have the shout out to Niki Lauda with the red. So that is my top 3. Now my bottom 3. Number 3, bottom 1 is actually hard for me because I think there's 2 definite ones that are by far the worst. And then my third was, And then after this, I do want to discuss one thing, but I'll let you do yours. My bottom third, so 8th favorite, I guess, is Williams. I really liked their car last year, which is why I think that they made it more like a navy this year, which I don't like as much. I do like the Duracell on top, but I just don't really like that navy. We'll see how it looks on track. I do like their white racing suits, though. I think that's going to look nice. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Number 2 is Haas. Just boring, extremely boring. Really nothing there. They could have thrown in any other color. It would have looked nice, but just pretty much the story of Haas is boring all around.
Big
and number
time
1,
snooze fest.
Number 1 is Alpine. The J just dropped the ball. Alpine. They had a chance to do something great. They put out some teaser liveries that were unbelievable. And then they just give us the two most boring liveries of all time. And the colors don't go well together. They've again gone with one pink one and one blue one. And both of them I don't like. They should just gone back to the days of the pink Mercedes, basically, when they had like the Pepto-Bismol pink all over the car. That really stood out on track, and you couldn't not notice that. So, yeah, I guess Gasly will be driving around in that, and so we'll lock on. Not a fan of that. Give me your bottom three.
Again, very similar lists between you and I. Number 3, my third least favorite is Haas. Like you said, complete snooze fest, just boring, and it's going to be a tractor. So what's there to like? My second, I think I give it points for originality and creativity, but to me, it's just a big eyesore. The steak Sauber livery, just that green is. I don't even know if they're going to put it on track because I mean the sponsorship thing, they're having to take everything off. They don't even have their finalized race suits anymore. So who knows? Who knows what that car is going to end up looking like?
Let's put that picture in because that's pretty funny.
I'll have to go back and clip that in. And then, yes, my least favorite is the Alpine because not only is it an ugly car, not only is it are they already kind of setting people's expectations for it to be slow and not great and that they're focusing on upgrades over the course of the season, but they lied. That team is a bunch of liars. They've teased for days on their Twitter account, pink camo. They've literally posted a picture of a front wing that had pink camo on it, which again, pink camo probably would have been a little bit ugly, but it's more just the fact that they teased that there'd be lots of pink or that they were going all pink or whatever the case may be, but they lied. And yes, you said there are two different versions of it. They're hardly distinguishable. They look the same to me, and they both are just eyesores. I do not like that team. I don't like that car, and I don't think there's going to be anything special coming from them this season. That could age like milk. We'll see, but I think it's going to age like wine.
Fine wine. Yeah, they're going to be. I don't know how that car is going to perform. They've seemed every year they seem to have some strife, some internal issues. Yeah, definitely not a fan favorite of mine. I like Gasly, but that's about it. I did want to discuss, but you touched on it with Sauber, the kick car, the green and black. At first, it does look like a video game design, like if you're playing the F1 game and you get to pick your livery. It looks like one of those. I'm kind of curious though that like bright green, I don't even know, like almost lime green. It might on the night tracks. It might look really nice. I don't know. There's a small chance that it might actually look good on track. We'll find out. Bahrain for the first race. Because I believe it's a night race. I think testing is probably during the day, but we will find out. And it might surprisingly look good, but first glance, it kind of looks like a joke. It looks trivial and childish. So that is our livery rankings. We now have another new segment, unless there's anything you want to add on to that.
I don't think so.
All right, another new segment. Did you know? This is where we each tell each other something we didn't know. We don't know if the other person knows. So, Adrian, did you know? Did you know an F1 car can accelerate from 0 to 60, 100 kilometers an hour for us Canadians, in 2.6 seconds, and 0 to 100, or 160 kilometers an hour in Canadian terms, in 4 seconds?
Whoa.
That's like and it can also decelerate from 60 miles an hour to 0 in less than 4 seconds as well. Did you know that?
I did not know that. It's fascinating.
Right. It is. It's crazy.
Now, did you know that over the course of an entire Grand Prix, now picture a big 2-liter of soda. That's a lot of liquid. Now fill that up with water and then add another half to it. That's how much water and body weight a driver loses in one race. 3 liters.
3 liters of water?
3 liters of water they sweat out in one race. And each car is supposed to be equipped with 1.5 liters of water. So if they drink their entire water reserve, then they're only replenishing half of the liquid that they actually lose during the course of a race. And of course, a lot of times that malfunctions, they don't get to drink, and it's like hot, boiling water, basically, or not boiling, but it's like warm water. So the things these men go through.
That's crazy. And then some races like, what was it? Wasn't Jeddah, but Qatar last year when I think a lot of the guys were like on the verge of passing out. I think Lance Stroll did momentarily pass out on the straightaway. when it's even hotter. Like, that is crazy.
Not good.
3 liters of, that's almost a gallon.
It is insane.
Yeah, no, that's nuts. So to answer your, no, I did not know that.
Ah,
I did
good.
not know that. So we both got each other. It's gonna be funny if we both bring the same stat one week.
That would
like,
be
well,
awesome.
I did know that because I had that. Yeah, no, that's funny. So another new segment. Here we go. This is a quick one, but shoutouts. Now, I think usually I intended this to be like shouting out other creators in the space, YouTubers, podcasters, other people in the F1 world. So maybe we can do some collaboration with them. But I actually had to go a different way. I am going to shout out William Byron, the winner of the Daytona 500. He started as an iRacer. He started kind of like in the movie Gran Turismo, that guy. He started as an iRacer until he was like 14 or 15. Was really, really good. Got into a car. Couldn't even get the car up the hill because he didn't know how to drive actual race cars. Now he's a Daytona 500 winner. Made it to the Final Four last year in the playoffs. I only know all this NASCAR stuff because I just watched the Netflix NASCAR series, which was actually very good. Watched Daytona yesterday because of it. I bet on William Byron and 4 other guys, and I made $200. $200 Canadian, which is about $10 American.
That's awesome.
$200 on William Byron. So off a $10 bet. So I will take that.
There you
and that
go.
is why I had to shout him out, because money in my pocket is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Mine's a little not as I don't even know the right. It's a little bit more of a meme. My shout out this week is to Christian Horner's wife.
Oh,
Because I feel very bad for her. All jokes aside, nothing
Jerry.
Jerry, not putting your relationship into the limelight, especially when there's issues, is never good. And from what at least we've been exposed to, she just seems like just a very pleasant and a very nice woman. And obviously they have a very big family. So, and she's a career, she has her own career as well. So props to her. I hope that she's able to navigate this situation. She has navigated it with grace, but I hope that it's not too damaging for her and her family. So shout out to her.
Shout out to her.
And the
Indeed,
victim.
I agree with that.
I need to say that.
Yeah.
Shout out to the victim as well. But that seemed less appropriate to say.
Yeah, I know. It's like a hard sentence to string together.
It is.
But yeah, we are. Obviously, it's an unfortunate situation for her, especially because it seemed like it wasn't a one-off. It seems like, based on what I read earlier, that it's been something that's been going on for a while, and she kind of just had enough. So she's on paid leave right now, and we'll delve more into that as we get more. No smooth transition off that, but let's go to our. This week we have, like I said, like 10 hours. We've got our first track, Cars on Track. It's really bad timing for us because it's 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. So we're probably going to have to just catch the tail end of it. But we have 3 days of testing in Bahrain. We have Drive to Survive coming out Friday morning or midnight or whatever the case may be. So we have lots of F1, and then we have an actual race next weekend. Yes. So do you want to read off the list I sent you, if you have it handy, of the drivers that will be in the first practice test session at Sakir, Bahrain, by the time you're listening to this podcast, probably?
We were seeing some drivers. I don't know if they were necessarily doing testing, but they were doing a couple of runs. We saw Lewis in the new W15 earlier today, but the first day of testing will be ran by Max Verstappen for Red Bull, George Russell for Mercedes, Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, Oscar Piastri, McLaren, Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, Esteban Ocon, Alpine, Alexander Albon, Williams, Yuki Tsunoda, Visa Cash App Red Bull, and Valtteri Bottas for Sauber, and Kevin Magnussen for Haas. So those are our drivers that will be taking the grid the track for the very first time in preseason testing. Very exciting. And like you said, at the top of this, it'll be 8 hours from now when they start, I believe.
8.
So, which...
Yeah, 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's crazy. Right. 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, it really... for some reason, it didn't strike me until I mentioned it earlier too. Like, have you seen when the times are? Because I was thinking like we got to wait till tomorrow, but really it's tonight.
Yeah,
no more. We have no more sleeps until F1, which is pretty wild.
For real.
Just as you mentioned, Visa Cash App Red Bull. What are they going to call this? I've heard some people saying V Carb. That doesn't really sound good either. Cash App. Are they going to call it Visa? I don't know. They're going to have to. There's no way they're going to. If they're like, here comes the Mercedes and the Ferrari and the Visa Cash App Red Bull. Like
V Carb.
What are they going to call it? speak.
Oh
Like,
my
I don't know.
God.
Very,
I guess I will probably refer to it as I don't know. It's hard to even, maybe the Visa Red Bull,
yeah,
or you could just
maybe.
stick with AlphaTauri, the Toro Rosso, do a little flashback. But I just can imagine Crofty. Danny Ricciardo wins it for the Visa Cash App Red Bull Racing. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It's a nightmare. Too much of a
man.
mouthful. Yeah. So I guess on the topic of money, we are going to do a little bit of betting this year. We've previously in our last few years done like a bit of a sort of like a fantasy draft, a draft where we each pick guys one back and forth. But with Max dominating so much, it just was like out of touch by half the season. So I think we're just going to keep track of kind of we're each going to make like one bet every week. And then based on like the odds of it and whatnot, we'll have to calculate it and keep track of that throughout the year and see how that goes. I assume by the end of the year, we'll both be down money, but we don't have to actually bet this money. We'll just make we'll keep track. So we'll do that. We don't really have anything to bet on quite yet, other than like who's going to be the constructors and drivers champions. And I mean, it'd be kind of stupid not to pick Max at this point, as much as I hate to admit that. So just for a fun one, just to kind of dip our toes in the water, no money or anything on this one, but who do we think will be the first driver to win a race this year not named Max Verstappen?
I think it'll be Leclerc.
That's what I have too. Charles Leclerc. If things continue the way it ended last year, it's going to be Charles. And I hope Charles can at least hang on to Max for a little while. I don't really have any faith in any of the other cars. Like, I'd like it to be Mercedes and Lewis, but I have no idea what to expect for them. Ferrari, I think they'll be good this year. Again, that could age like milk as well.
I do think McLaren have a good shot, just because it seems like they're really kicking things up as far as their production goes. But Leclerc was just on again, even though Max was on the most legendary run in the sport's history, arguably, Leclerc was giving him everything he had that he could possibly give in that car, and especially his performance in Vegas, just so commendable. So I think he deserves it, not only, but I would just love to see it, because I just love Leclerc so much. I just want him, and I cannot wait for him and Lewis to be teammates. That is so exciting.
That's like the dream pairing, those two. It's going to be so great.
Yes.
And like, there's pictures of Charles when he was like a younger boy, maybe early teens, kind of like outside of the Mercedes paddock, like staring like just googly eyed at Lewis in there, and then they're gonna be teammates. Like, oh, that's gonna be so great.
So awesome.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. I do want Lando to finally get a win this year. Oscar has already beaten him to it. Not a GP win, but Oscar's already got a sprint win. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Orlando.
So that's our bets. We're going to try and do one bet each week if we can. And one last little thing I wanted to end us off on is just to end up on a happy note, you know? I think I want us to each give a quote or something inspirational or something that we've heard. I want to go second, so I want you to go first. If you have the same one as me, I'm going to punch you through the screen.
No. I was just sort of testing the waters with our first quote, so I went with a very known and iconic quote in honor of Drive to Survive returning this Friday. This quote is from Will Buxton.
Oh.
You want to start from the front because it means you've got the other 19 drivers behind you. Inspirational as fuck.
Just put that on my wall and I can look at it every morning when I wake up, because that's as good as it gets. Oh man, I saw that he released a book about like the history of F1 or something, and one of the first, like the top comment was, does it start with you want to qualify at the front of the pack? Oh man.
If the foreword said you want to read the first page so that you can get to the last page last.
Read page 1 before page 2. Oh man, what a guy. That was great. That got me a big laugh there. I didn't expect that. So mine is also a bit humorous. But just because we're now called the Shake and Bake F1 podcast, I wanted to really give a shout out quote to our man, Ricky Bobby. And my quote this week: you're not first, you're last.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. Baby. I was hoping. I almost said that at the top, so I'm glad I didn't.
Oh man. No, you better not, because that's going to be my outro. So anything else you want to say this week, my friend?
No, I love it. That's perfect.
All right. For Adrian Huff and myself, Arjun McCullough, thank you for listening. And as always, remember, you're not first, you're last.
Let's go.